So, thank you very much for this new smart discussion. I would like to thank Luigi Cabrini from the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, a good friend. We were also with Guta Maraguetes, that I also thank you for being with us. We were some months ago in BTL in a very good experience and discussion on this topic. And as most people were not available to be here in this conference, we decided to organize this smart discussion that is very, very updating because tourism is becoming more and more very interesting. Before we go to the discussion, I'd like to say that our next smart discussion will be in 2 weeks. It will be with very good well-known people. Antonio Saraiva, that was the president of SIP and is now, it will be, I think, in a few weeks, the president of Cruz Vermelha Portuguesa, and Isabel Jonet, that is well known for everybody, from Banco. We will speak about a different topic that is connected with how we can try to be involved in a more fair and a more equilibrated society. This will be a different topic for today, but it was only to update. So, in terms of what are going today, so we have here with us, as I told you, two very experienced people, the persons. Luigi Cabrini is now the chairman of the Global Sustainable Tourism Council. He used to be in the past also involved in the World Tourism Office, and he is a very, very well-known speaker in the international conference about the challenges that tourism is going to have in the future. I know that you will share with us some very good insights on this topic. And also Guta Maraguetes, that is well known for everybody. She is the CEO of Experimental Design. She writes every week in Expresso, in the magazine, and she will take with us a very good slide about tourism in terms of cities, culture, and things like that. So as we do other times, we have first a keynote from each speaker. I think they will have some slides to present, and then we'll have a discussion between all of us during the time we have. So Luigi, we start with you, and then we pass to Guta. Thank you very much.
Okay.
You can share your slides, please.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Jaime, thank you very much. We've been having joint events very frequent in the last months, and
Yes.
as you were mentioning before, I was in Lisbon and invited by you. Then I was in Corvilla last week at an event of Turismo do Centro, and always a pleasure for me to be in Portugal and to be connected with Portugal. I live in Madrid for the last 20 years now, so though I'm Italian, I consider myself a neighbor of your nice country. So as you've seen, I've adapted the title of my presentation to the topic of the session today, and I titled Sustainability, the Future, and put in brackets and present of tourism. I think my point is that often by talking about the future, we refuse to take responsibility for the present. And by postponing decisions or put a time frame 2030, 2050, what we are actually doing, we are not, as I say, not taking action as quick and as decisive as it should be. But let me see what's going on. Okay,
Yes.
let me first start with a bit of an update, very recent update from the World Tourism Organizations of the recovery of international tourism. You can see in this graphic the different years, 2020, 2021, 22, and the first quarter of 23. And the percentage that you see which are all negative, are in fact the lesser number of tourists compared to the last year pre-pandemic, which was the year 2019. So 20 and 21 was terrible years, about 70 to 80% of international tourist loss. 22 already showed a strong recovery. And in the first quarter of 23, we already see almost on track to recovery. We also see that this recovery is quite unequal. Europe is one of the leading regions in the recovery, is only 10% less of what it was international tourism in 2019, while we see region like Asia and the Pacific that is about 50% less. So a very unequal recovery due to different reasons, to say COVID strategies and other reasons. The UNWTO has a publication called Barometer, and they do poll a few hundred experts all over the world, and they ask them what is their perception, the perspective about the future. So this slide show you what the experts think of what will have the full recovery. That meaning going back to the pre-pandemic level. And as you can see, the majority shows 2024 with about 40%. Some show 23 and some 25 or later as the possible year for, I would say, the full recovery of international tourism. Experts are also asked what are the factors that influence the recovery and basically tourist flows. And as you can see, economy remain the very important issues. The first two items with 70 and 62% is economic environment in general. And the second is the higher transport and accommodation cost. As you all know, the relative cost of flying, traveling, hosteling, renting a car has increased tremendously after the pandemic. So you see most of the experts see this as an obstacle to the full recovery. We also have other elements. There are still travel restrictions in some countries in Asia. The war in Ukraine created a certain insecurity and has an impact, of course, also on the propension to travel. It's interesting enough, none of these items has to do with sustainability. It's true that the questions were about the short-term recovery, but that's a bit the point I was making before. None of the responded actually indicates, for example, climate change or the higher number of emissions, and maybe the attitude of travelers to reduce their traveling in the future. So this is not seen, let's say, as a factor. But yes, we will see later, I'll show some of the polls done by Booking.com. And then there is quite a high sensitivity to sustainability. So the point again, when we are talking about today, there are no sustainability concerns. We're talking about tomorrow, sustainability concerns are there. Now, pre-pandemic tourism was a huge sector, 10% of the GDP globally, 1 every 11 jobs worldwide. United Nations included tourism as one of the sectors that can lead to the accomplishment of the Sustainable Development Goals. And so the question is, will be able to come back to the same tourism as before, or there will be some change? As actually the pandemic changed the attitude, has increased the demand for sustainable tourism. And this comes a bit the work that GSTC, or let me first start with the polls I was mentioning before. Booking.com is a member of our organization for the last few years, and they made 2 polls, one in 2021 in the middle of the pandemic. And as you can see, 83% of travelers think that sustainable travel is vital, and 61% said that the pandemic made them want to travel more sustainably. On the other hand, they believe, half of them, that there are not enough sustainable travel options available. And another half are annoyed if they go to hotel or destinations and, for example, they don't find the recycled bins because they feel that they cannot actually be part of the sustainable movement. The second poll was done in 2023. And those that say want to travel more sustainably increased, you see it was 61% here and a 73% in 2023. On the other hand, they believe that travel sustainably is more expensive. Some of them are willing to pay extra for certified hotel or destinations. And this is just the data. Many are actually having in their habit, for example, of turning off the conditioning or reusing towels or sheets, etc. So there is, I say, an increasing conscience about, acts that can actually improve and reduce the negative footprint of tourism. So our organization was founded in 2007, so that makes more than 15 years now. Our funding organization were mostly the United Nations, the foundation that basically funded our start, and then the World Tourism Organization, the United Nations Environmental Program, and big NGOs like Rainforest Alliance, WWF, etc. And our membership is quite varied. We have big tourist players, Booking.com, Intercontinental, TUI, Airbnb, Royal Caribbean, but we also have now over 30 governments who are members of GSTC, and as well many NGOs, universities, academies, etc. And at the base of our work is the set of criteria. Sorry, I have some cough, so I will need to have some water quite often. First, the hotel and tour operators that was funded in 2008, and then destinations criteria in 2013, and finally industry criteria in 2019. Each of the criterion is linked to one of the sustainable development goals. And one of our activity has been actually focusing on certification, as we noted that there were many certification programs, but a bit of loss of credibility on what they were actually standing for. We created therefore the accreditation program for certification bodies. And today we have a handful of certification bodies accredited. And a few examples of companies that are using our system. TUI, that actually has all its hotels certified by GSTC accredited program. We have Hilton using our criteria to ensure sustainability of their operations. EasyJet also using accredited certification bodies. Royal Caribbean, the second largest cruising company, that is actually using certificated tour operators for their tours when the cruise ship reach a destination. And big companies, as say Booking.com or Agoda, that actually want to make sure that every traveler looking for a hotel, tour operator, or destinations can actually find in the web in an easy way those web sustainability parameters certified and endorsed by an organization such as the STC. I will then like to mention this is, I would say, a very, very huge program for us. We signed late last year a big program with the Turkish Ministry of Tourism, Turkey as they call, but Turkey. As you know, it's a large tourist country with over 22,000 hotels. Ministry has committed to have all the hotels certified by a GSTC recognized program before 2030. That's, I think, is a huge progress for us. And finally, we have this destination program where we actually evaluate destinations, over 35 so far, and we basically make a diagnostic of their sustainability level against the criteria. So to conclude, I'm sorry for my cough. We can restart better than we were doing before the pandemic, and the problems have not really changed. They are the same. We are over tourism, global warming, lack of resources or waste of resources, biodiversity reduction, plastic pollution. And while we're doing some progress, this is not fast enough. And therefore, as I said at the beginning, I think we should look at the future, not as tomorrow, but as today, and act accordingly. Thank you. And again, my excuse for my voice is beyond my control. Thank you.
Luigi, thank you very much. It was a very updating about what's going on in tourism. And I think that in this discussion, we can go on with this topic. Now we pass to Guta. Guta, you have also some slides to present, right?
Yeah, just to guide the conversation, because it's the same presentation I did.
Can you share them?
I can, yeah.
I think you have the
Share screen.
authorization to do it.
I think so.
Okay, fantastic.
Is it okay?
Yes, it's perfect.
Just there's a full screen tool, which I don't know where is it. Are you seeing full screen or?
Yes, we see also the slides in the side, but I think it's okay, no problem.
Yeah, because view.
No, it's okay, Luther. We can see them.
It's okay. It's here.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so
Yes, that's okay now. Yes.
Jaime, thank you again for inviting me for this conversation.
Yes, it's a pleasure.
I remember the initial invitation was about talking about the relation tourism and sustainability, right?
Yes.
And
Right.
which is for me a very important issue. And as you know, some of you may know a bit of my work is completely focused on proving that culture can really be a tool for sustainability and for a sustainable society. In fact, when we talk about sustainability, we talk about 4 pillars: environment, economy, social, and culture. So every moment that I think about sustainability, and especially when I look to tourism, of course, my first idea is how to use culture to make tourism more sustainable. I think that is the only way to really take some serious decisions, and not only, and also to engage all the communities, because to make tourism a sustainable activity, we need that the players become sustainable, of course, the big players, but we need also people to be engaged with that idea. And the only possibility is through education and through culture. So I just put some ideas together. So we know that in tourism, we need to keep our identity, the space, the context identity. We need to propose something that makes us different as well. And we need to blend many elements to make that combination to be efficient and therefore to become sustainable. So the idea of using culture to make a destination more attractive and more connected with a certain identity, and at the same time engage more people on it, has been explored for many years, as we know. And one of the examples that we have that really can change a location is when we do cultural events on a place. Because of different layers, of course, not only because the cultural event will act as a magnet to the location, but especially because in principle, it can deal with what are the local elements that really makes the destination so special. But more than that, being cultural, they will attract also a community of thinkers and an audience that is really committed with this idea of being sustainable. So there are many side effects that are really very important for this industry when we talk about bringing cultural event to a place. Of course, there are many different types of cultural events. I'm just referring one that I was responsible for many years ago. So back in 1999, when we started doing the Bienal Experimental Design in Lisbon. Lisbon was not at all a location for design. Lisbon was at that moment, it was a post Expo 98, like sort of wondering what were the next steps to keep the vibe on. And we created a Biennale that was completely international. And that was really based on looking to design and architecture. There were the main disciplines, and to see it from the cultural perspective. And with that event, so we did it for 18 years. We did also an edition because we were invited by the City Hall of Amsterdam. We did it in Amsterdam as well. So during those years, I don't know why this is not moving now. Okay. We became the largest regular Portuguese cultural event in the Portuguese capital. And in fact, we were 2 times a successful case study for the economy program, European program, because we proved that we could deal with the heritage of Lisbon. So with the cultural heritage existent in Lisbon, with the citizens in Lisbon, and transforming it during each edition of the Biennale, not only through the contents, but also by the way we engage with the community, both local and both international. So in fact, we have an amazing example that it's now replicated in many countries, as you may know. But back 25 years ago, we were only like 2 or 3 events, and we were the first ones in doing this cultural approach. We really proved to be a way of creating an attraction through a project that was underlining the most important elements of Lisbon identity, Portuguese identity, but also the international culture. So I think in a way, it's a good example. We decided not to continue for other reasons, not because it was not being successful, but it was other reasons. But we can name many other examples in the world that are really this connection of the cultural event with the location itself and with this sustainable perspective. So this is a way of doing. Of course, we increase the number of the visitors. In Lisbon, it was a huge impact in terms of hotels, in terms of restaurants. We explored, like I was saying, at least 59 different places in Lisbon that were not supposed to be activated through culture, changing them into locations, temporary locations during the time we were acting here, and more. We invited 51 countries to come to Lisbon and to make it the center of the world during these 2 months, 3 months. So this is a way to deal directly with tourism, of course, to keep this idea of identity, to bring value to a place, using culture, in my perspective, the way it can be used. At the same time, we were reflecting upon very important themes for society. So coming from design and architecture, it was very easy for us to analyze specific problems in Lisbon or then in Amsterdam, connected with mobility, connected with the use of resources, connected with many aspects that became very interesting for the city and for the citizens itself. So it's an example of how to use culture in tourism. Then, of course, we have this profound relation of tourism with the heritage, with our classical heritage. And by saying this, I mean, I don't know why my PDF. Yeah, I just would like to give a small example of something that is happening now in Portugal. It's a small scale program, but in fact, they are picking on a very interesting network of historical villages. It's Beira Interior. It's one of the most remote areas in our country. I'm sorry because my PowerPoint doesn't respond to my velocity of speaking. And in fact, they are doing a very well done work, although they can do more, of course, but they are picking only on heritage. They are creating a narrative. They are creating a story around these villages. And they are teaching the visitors, but also the locals, how to address this territory here. And as far as I know, they do it in a very sustainable way in terms of environments and also in terms of engaging the communities. This is an example that is also interesting for our theme and for our discussion. Then the last one, I am sorry, I'm really sorry. Yeah, those are the villages. I don't know why this is so slow. Sorry, it's really taking too long. I think that I'm going to leave the shares the full screen because it's blocking. Okay, then the use of so we're talking about heritage in the previous example, and now I would like to talk a bit about the way that contemporary culture, because of course we are in the 21st century, we know that so many things change. from digital to other changes, profound changes that we are facing. And so we can use culture in different ways, again, to relate it with tourism and with this industry. I'm sorry, I'm trying to move. Yeah, this is an example of an exhibition that we did during 6 years, in fact, because of COVID. We were working directly with one of a very important industry in Portugal, which is the stone industry. We did a project that was touring in different cities all over the world. So it was a project to show the value of architecture and of design in terms of innovation when it's combined with industry. But what we did at the end of the process, but also in some locations, was to combine this contemporary culture with the existent classical museums or classical heritage. So we were in fact, bringing all that innovation, which is very important to be brought, to very classical places, like in this case, the National Coach Museum, and this is not going through again, in a way to attract new and more exigent audiences. Because it's a fact that we are completely aware that we have a problem with our planet. We are consuming our resources, but it's also a fact that a country like ours and many other countries in the world, we need tourism to support our economy. So the big question is, in one side, how to preserve and to protect the heritage, of course, landscape and natural resources included, but also how to talk with new audiences, which we know that are more demanding in terms of requirements. The new generations and each of us, we know that sustainability is an issue. So myself, I tend to prefer locations where the hotels and the cities are more sustainable. So that discourse can be enhanced and can be better if we use, again, culture to make it and culture to address it. I'm going to leave this PDF because I'm really tired with this not responding situation from my presentation. I don't know why it's happening this, but just to finalize my initial comments, to say that I know that Luisa Schmidt is here and I saw her article on Expresso, of course. Myself, I write very often in my article about design, about tourism. And the question that really, in Portugal at least, but I know that in the other countries, that we need to face is how to keep on investing on tourism, but doing it in a sustainable way and keeping our identity and enhancing our identity. And again, my proposal is that we can and we should use more and more culture for that sort of strategy. Not only because culture is an offer by itself, but especially because culture can really improve all the system and make it become better. I'm just finishing with a small example that really came from the discussion that we had on a debate some months ago. You imagine that if any mayor, when he needs to give a permission to open a new hotel, that it's going to happen in a building, that it's in a good shape, it doesn't, or even has this architect, I don't know, relevance. Can you imagine if the mayor start to involve the cultural community in order to discuss if the building should be just destroyed with a huge impact in terms of sustainability, just updated, but using the right approach in terms of architecture, to discuss the better solution for that sort of situations. So if anyone that is operating in the tourism sector could start a very active and open collaboration and dialogue with the cultural and creative sector, that would mean a lot in terms of making it more sustainable and more close to the goals that we know that we need to achieve. This is the beginning of the conversation. We know that the best part is always the discussion.
Thank you very much, Guta. It was incredible, like Luigi. And then regards to the discussion, we have, as you said, here with us, Luisa Schmidt, that wrote Saturday in Express a very special article about the tourism. I don't know, Luisa, if you can comment on the article, on what Luigi and Guta told, and then go on with the discussion with other people. Thank you.
Yes, just one initial comment to start a discussion, and
Yes,
very interesting. I think your link of culture and tourism. One of the concerns we have is that you cannot make a global impact if you only address the niche segment of tourism. You cannot look at sustainability only at ecotourism or cultural tourism or art tourism, because you will still have hundreds of millions of people traveling to the beaches and traveling to the cities, to Barcelona, to Amsterdam, and so on. So I think a concept of sustainability needs really to be global and addressing, of course, in very different ways, because it's not the same addressing sustainability concern when you have a few thousand people on a beach in the Adriatic coast of Italy, or when you have an urban arts festival in Corviglia, for example. This is a different approach, but both need to be taken into account. Mm-hmm. It will be very elitist if you only look at segments that are easy to be sustainable, because just the nature, there are less tourists, there are niche, but so we also have, let's put it away, dirty our hands with all the rest. And I think this is key for all discussion on sustainability. When we are looking at the impact on tourism on climate change, we have to look at the emissions of the thousands of people traveling from Germany to Spain or from Holland to Spain. If we don't address that, and I'm not meaning stopping tourism, but just try to find a way of reducing those footprints, then I'm afraid that we will not be solving the future of tourism, which is with the title of our conversation today.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments, Luigi, but the first remark is that culture is not elitistic at all. That's, in my perspective, it's a mistake. Because culture is what we find in any small village when we look into the crafts, local crafts, or when we look into the small communities that are operating, producing artifacts or music, or it doesn't matter. So it's I think it's a very 20th century mistake, which we allowed for many years. Saying that culture is part of an elite is absolutely the contrary. And what I mean with the value of culture for this large-scale system is that through culture, you can educate people definitely to become more sustainable. So we need more educated audiences. We need more educated visitors. We need to attract people that really recognize the impact on environments when they come to the beach and they just throw the glasses away and the plastic and so on. So it's a question of really using culture in each and every place, because it's a very common and easy language to understand, to also increase the level of the tourists, because we also need to do that sort of work. It's really a systemic issue that we're looking for. So my proposal goes on that direction. It's not about making elitistic events or something like that. No. It's really the opposite. It's to use culture to engage people to the situations. Either they are the promoters, or they are the visitors, or they are the tourists. Because, as you know better than me, we have enough bad examples of what happened in many locations around the world. So in Portugal particularly, we are a very small country. So every mistake we do is a serious mistake for us, a serious mistake. And we saw it, and Luisa for sure is going to talk about it, in Algarve, and we are still seeing it in terms of decisions. So we cannot afford that now. And for that, we need to engage everybody. That's the only thing that I would like to.
Okay, now we pass to Luisa, and then we are going on with discussion. Luisa, please make your comment and your.
Thank you. Thank you, Jaime. Thank you, Luigi, and good day. It was very interesting. Tourism is a complex issue, very complex. In Portugal, I would like to center in Portugal. Tourism has been, and we all know that, has been the country's economics lifeline, but it could also become the doom of its future due to the poor role it has played in land use, in planning, and the problem also that we have now of access to housing. So it is evident, and you both talked about this. Tourism can bring enormous benefits to the GDP. Jaime wrote today 14% of our GDP comes from tourism. The rehabilitation of the old buildings, the famous guest house tourism that managed to maintain the manor houses in the north, for instance, or what Guta just talked about, the historical villages, the heritage, and of course the cultural events of experimental design, which is well, it's music for my ears. So, but what we see is that in addition to these various benefits, tourism plays a role that can also be ruinous. It's the other side of tourism. We have recently seen some cities, and Luigi, of course, he can talk about this, like Venice or Barcelona, where strong public reactions are generated against the destructive role of tourism, and these reactions are born to restore public policies in places that fall into disrepair. This is what is about to happen in Lisbon. Lisbon is almost there. Added to this is all the pressure that tourism is currently putting on our coastal areas, overloading them in large developments, large urbanizations, and respective infrastructures in the context of rising sea levels and the impact of climate change. And we see this in Algarve, and we are now seeing this in Alentejo, the other part of Portugal that was still well, without this pressure of tourism that is destructive for the landscape and for the resources and for the people living there and for the Portuguese using the beach too. So then we have other absurds, to say the least. For instance, I'll talk about an absurdity that we have in Portugal. The absurd, to say the least, the president of the Algarve tourism region, an official institution, is the same person who represents the Algarve tourism business. This is a contradiction. There is an incompatibility of functions, and it means that Portugal, there is no tourism policy in Portugal, as it happens in other countries. We don't have a policy for tourism, and we should have it. We have to have it. I give another example. For instance, in 2023, it is expected to open one new hotel every 5 days. This is not sustainable. So if we continue like this, not only are we destroying the territory, landscape, everything, but we are also, which is a stupid thing, we are killing the goose that lays the golden eggs. Matar a galinha dos ovos de ouro that tourism needs, tourism itself needs. So we are killing what tourism needs. But we are killed by tourism, by the over tourism is killing the tourism. That's where I feel. So tourism has this it's fantastic, it's democratic, it's everything. It makes part of our liberty, of our individual what we like to travel. All this is true, but tourism can't kill itself. And it's happening in many places like Bali, for instance. Bali, which went from the capital of delight to today, it's a hellish place. So we have to take care with this, and we have to think about this economic activity in this, like Luigi and Guta said, in the sustainable way. Pronto, já acabei.
Okay, so that we can pass to other people. Okay, thank you very much, Luisa. Okay, we have here with us Karina. She's asking for speak. Karina is directing the School of Tourism, more or less, in Fatima, and Fatima is one of the biggest places that have tourism in Portugal. Yes, Karina, please.
Hello, Jaime. Hello, everybody. I intend to agree with Luisa that was previously talking. I'm a headmaster of a School for Tourism and Hospitality here in Fatima, yes, and I see every day something that is not sustainable tourism. So I would like to share some thoughts about this. I know what I see in our cities, I know what I see in our regions, and I know also what I see in other regions in Europe and in the world. We are partners of a very big consortium for Tourism Education Forum, a European consortium of a lot of countries, and we were recently in Alba in Italy, and I was very, very impressed about seeing what can be done in a region with a strategic forum for tourism. They have strategic partnership, a strategic plan for tourism in a small region in Italy. I don't know if we have, I see a lot of papers, I see a lot of things that are written, but then they don't match what we see in our cities. So between the strategic plan and the implementation of sustainable politics in place, there's a huge gap still in Portugal. So I would like just to share this comment that we need to take care of this as something that is our home, not just for living, but also for the tourists that are coming to visit us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karina. And before passing to Luigi and to Guta, we have Pedro Saraiva, that is the Vice Rector of Nova University, and he is involved in some very interesting projects. Please, Pedro.
Yeah, so thank you so much for all the presentations, and from the experience you are having here at Nova. I mean, it's very clear that tourism sustainability is a key priority for all the agents that are involved. Now, the understanding of what that means, then that's what raises the discussion afterwards, right? What does it mean for you? And as a country, I fully agree a little bit with Luisa, what Luisa was just saying. I mean, tourism, to remain a strong contributor to the Portuguese economy, needs to reshape itself, right? It needs to be much more innovative, to be able to pay higher wages. So it needs a lot of innovation to be sustainable as a driving sector for the future of Portugal, and keeping the position it has right now. And that's a tremendous challenge for all of us, for universities, for individuals, for companies. It requires a lot of training and upskilling and reskilling as well. But there is another dimension. If you talk with some of the key players on the market, they say that when they move into this direction, it's not yet because many customers ask you to do so. So that there is the way we need to also change when we behave as tourists, right? Are willing to accept in a 5-star hotel that the temperature in my room should not be decided by myself alone, but keep up with what are good practices in terms of energy efficiency to manage the hotel. And that's the kind of transition that I believe needs also to be taking place, understanding that in the post-pandemic era, I think there is room for many different perspectives on what the tourists expect you to provide them as solutions. I love, and I know most of the historical villages that Guta was sharing, and I think part of the future of tourism is going to be there as well. So that's why this meeting that took place in Kubilai, saying tourism is not just about the main cities near the coastline. We also need to find other places and get other experience. So that's a little bit what we are building. The sector is maturing. It's becoming more and more concerned about sustainability, but it's still trying to find what that means and how that can match the behavior of tourists and the behavior of the private and public players in the sector. And that's, I think, that what's going to be part of the fascinating future ahead of us. And for that, we need to get more and more the willingness from the agent in the sector to be more and more innovative. And that's the challenge we face every day here at Nova University, trying to make the right partnerships to bring the top knowledge that is available for you to create additional value from what you are doing in the tourism sector. And also good to see you, Karina, that I have not seen for a number of years now. So, but I think you are all aligned, but the details matter, right? And when you go to the details, maybe there are differences that we need to come up with in terms of the answers that need to be well balanced, right? Because it's one, it's not one thing or the other. It's making sure sustainability is about making trade-offs and balances between different dimensions. And we are here to help those that want to make this journey together with Nova.
Okay, Pedro, thank you very much. Now we pass to Luigi and then to Guta, and then we go to a second and final comment. And then,
Well, thank
if
you.
you want, you can speak in the end. Okay.
Yes, all very good and pointed comments. Let me start with are we not a definition of tourism, but when we prepare these criteria for destinations and hotels and tour operators, our guiding principle was we have to define these criteria to maximize positive impacts and minimize positive benefits and minimize negative impacts. I mean, this is all about what tourism is. You will never have a perfection, but you have to try to make this balance a positive one. And then another principle that we have is that needs to be community-centered. The community, the local community, how small or big, be a city like Lisbon or be in a small village like Orvilla, need to have a say on what kind of tourist development or kind of tourist strategy has to be applied and has to be developed in that region. And I think to the comment of Karina about our first criterion, A1 on management, says that this is destinations, but can be applied to a country as a destination, that you need to have an organization. That organization needs to have the means to operate, needs to define a sustainable tourist strategy, and need to operate involving all the other stakeholders. Without that, without a planning, without involvement of stakeholders, without a roadmap, you are doomed to fail, because this is the only way that you can drive, let's say, a development that lasts for years. Now, another considerations, we have, when we have companies like TUI, like Airbnb, like Hilton and Sheraton approaching a small organization like us and working seriously with us, we understand that there has been a change in the approach, especially from the big leaders in tourism. There has been a change because they all understand that if we want to continue at the pace we are going, which is a fast pace, we need to change some of the paradigms. And I think the fact that 30 governments also approach us and use these strategies. So I think there is a lot of willingness. The tools are there, but of course, it's a hard work. We understand the politicians have to provide, results in the short term, and sometimes results in the short term are not compatible with a sustainable tourist strategy. So this is the balance somehow we have to achieve. So now I will stop it there.
Yeah.
Yes, Guta, now it's your time, please.
Just a short comment, because of course, in such a discussion, it's not easy to escape from our own country, and we are really facing a very serious situation here in Portugal. I think it is dramatically serious, because it is a fact, like Jaime, you said and you wrote, and we know it's becoming the most important industry in Portugal. It is a fact that we have, in fact, an amazing country in terms of landscape, in terms of history, in terms of heritage, in terms of contemporary cultural production, and more elements that we have that make us very interesting in terms of using this industry to develop our country. The fact that it's strange that we don't have someone from or the government or another kind of institute really planning and giving it the needed strategic vision that we would need here. I don't know if it needs to come from the government. I think so, because of all the investment that is really necessary to produce a good work and then to operate the country like this. No doubts that that sort of regulation and vision and strategy should be articulated with the stakeholders and with this idea of defining a specific identity, that it's already so clear in Fatima, that it's already so clear in Azores, that it's already so clear in the cities, Porto and Lisbon, but making it like a sort of cooperation, you know, because of course, again, we are small, we need to collaborate, we need to understand the differences to make them advantages in the touristic market, but no doubts that we need serious regulation now, because so far what we have been seeing is the complete destruction of our landscape. And again, Algarve, it's a shining and screaming example of that. We have another area that is now facing a serious development in terms of tourism, which is Comporta and all the arch that goes down there until Sagres. We know that we have inland, the Beira Interior and the north of Portugal, which are definitely paradises in terms of what the new tourism is asking, which is silence, peace, no sound, no noise, no visual pollution. There is a market for this, but we need to have a strategy. We can't have everything at the same time. We have it already in Lisbon and in Porto, and for me that would be enough. I think that I don't have doubts that, to be sincere, Lisbon and Porto are destroyed in that sense. So we are becoming a city of tourists, and that's it. Serving the tourists and not serving the citizens. That started many years ago. It's difficult to stop now, very difficult to stop, especially after COVID and so on. But we have still very important gems in Portugal. And so for that, definitely we should fight, and we should ask for this articulated vision in collaboration with many other countries that are facing the same situation. We know that. And I think that in a way we can expect big chains, like you mentioned, Luigi, Hilton and other chains that are saying we are sustainable, we want to show that we are sustainable, we are developing sustainable strategies, but they will never be enough, right? And especially in a country like ours. So we really need to have this, I'm surprised. We don't even have a ministry for tourism, right? We have a secretary. Do we have a secretary of state now? I don't even remember.
Yes, we have.
Yes, we have, but we don't.
But it's for tourism and commerce, right? It's not just for tourism any longer. So
yeah,
right now, yeah.
we are not even seeing it as a priority in terms of Portugal development, which should be, and it is. On one side, we are seeing it because we are assisting to this, like Louise or someone was saying that one hotel will open each 5 days. It's crazy, right? It's really where, how, organized by, planning by, but we are seeing that. And then we don't have a strategy and a vision that is really serious and profoundly
So we'll pass now for a second and final comment basis. We have Paulo Moraes Vaz, that is the director of the School for Hospitality in Oporto. We have also Paulo Nunes, that is investing a lot in health and tourism. I think you will speak about that. And then if Luisa wants to make a comment after we speak with them. So Paulo, please.
Well, thank you very much, Jaime, for this opportunity. In fact, it's not easy to speak about tourism. It's kind of like soccer. Everybody knows a little bit and has an opinion, which is good. When we work with it for a certain purpose. I think that more than changing, I think that we need a cultural change in our country to be able to prepare the future and to have a better future, either for tourism or for other industries. The fact is that we have no longer strong industries that can allow us to just change the direction that tourism took and the way that tourism took. And that's a reality. And we need to think about it for the future. But I was taking some notes since I was arriving to my office, and there's a few comments about it.
Paulo,
I think that
Paulo, we are not seeing you.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have camera.
I'm going to connect the camera right now.
Okay.
I'm in condition to do that. Okay. I hope that you see me now. Okay. Hi, everybody. So I think that the question of sustainability for tourism, in terms of the companies, my opinion is that it's kind of taken care, because sustainability is now directly linked to financing. So companies that want to finance themselves will need to go to bank and to other financing organizations that themselves need to be certified in terms of ESG. So that means that in order to get the financing, the companies will need to be themselves as well certified in terms of sustainability. So it will become another area of operations of work for the companies, the question of the sustainability and ESG. So for that way, I think that we are in the right path for having something organized. Then another issue that we leave, and this one is in Portugal, I would say, that the limitations that city and regional authorities work with can be a tricky obstacle for sustainability, because we all know that there are ways to deal with these kind of problems, and sometimes you can build in a certain spot, sometimes you cannot. It's not clear and it's not transparent, and that's a cultural issue. I think that we as a country are not very demanding with our politicians, and we should be more. And that's the way to make them be more transparent and more, I would say, people's orientated in their policies, because people will become more and more attentive and reactive to sustainability, and we will act towards that direction and that solution. So this is a path. I think that it was Pedro that was mentioning it. This is the way that we are now beginning to build towards a more successful approach to this issue. Now to I think that I was listening, we have many segments in terms of tourists, and we need to define which we want to work with. Otherwise, we are not able to work with everybody, and we need to stick to the plan, which is again a cultural problem for Portuguese people. We normally decide everything and we throw huge parties, huge movements, but then we don't keep to the plan, and then at the end of the period we don't do any kind of assessment, so we don't take any conclusions. We just move to another plan without further notice, as I can say this. And I think that this is more than everything, it's a kind of a cultural change that we need to do, and for that we need training and we need education. Education's in the base of everything. We need to teach our students, our future professionals in terms of tourism, to be more critical and to have a critical approach to the things they do, to think about their professionals, their impact in the sector in a more, I would say, global, holistic way. Otherwise, we will just have people that are prepared and trained to obey orders and not to put nothing in cause, and not to think differently. We need to think differently because problems are different from the ones that we have been facing right now. So I would say that, as Pedro said before, we are in the right path, but we need to invest more in training and in the education, because it's the only way to change the way that we think and the way that we act. And changing that, we'll be able to be a country that will warmly welcome everybody that wants to come to visit us and to invest their time and their money in our country, and at the same time having a country that it is good for us to live with, and it's good for us to have our children living in. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much, Paulo. And you are a good example, because Escola de Hotelaria do Porto is a very good example of a successful school in tourism. Now, to finalize,
Thank you very much.
before passing to Luisa, Guta, and Luigi, we have with us also Pedro, that is doing a lot of work on health. Health and
Pedro,
tourism are more
Pedro.
and more connected. Pedro, do you want to make any comment, please?
Pedro.
Sorry, Paulo Nunes. Sorry, I said wrong name.
Sorry,
Paulo Nunes,
thank
please. Yes.
thank you so
I
much.
will speak.
Thank you so much, Jaime. It's been amazing for me to be learning on tourism. As you know, Jaime, my core sectors are not in the tourism. And I lived for many years in Spain. Now in Portugal, I realized that it's really, really difficult for a small country like Portugal to compete in terms of a tourism strategy against Spain. And I understand that our guest speaker, Luigi Cabrini, also knows very well Spain. It's one of the most visited countries in the world, and we are a small country next to Spain, so it's difficult. And from my perspective as a foreigner, I've been living in Spain last 15 years. I think that Portugal is not doing so bad, because in the end we are able to differentiate a little bit from Spain, and the fact that the country has now these regions, you know, like Algarve, Central, Lisboa, Porto. It's a good progress. I'm also happy to learn from Guta Moraguedes about the Aldeia Histórica, because it's also a nice product that Portugal offers. If you arrive from Portugal from Spain and you start to see the logo of the historic village, that means also some great work being done in Portugal in terms of tourism. But still my question is, and this is for everybody, as a sustainable opportunity for tourism to bridge the gap between what is the interior of a country, and the same in Spain when we talk about España vaciada. I'm sure, Luigi, you're familiar with this problem in Spain, where there's desertic villages all over the country. Also in Portugal, I think that tourism could be a contribution to make the country more balanced in terms of jobs that may be created, and also economy, local economy that could be created. And still I see, when we see the majority of the offer in Portugal is Lisbon, Portugal and Algarve, and that's it. So what could be the policies that could make this to be a reality, to have more tourism and more sustainable tourism in the interior?
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know, before passing to Luigi and Guta, I don't know, Luisa, do you want to make any comment?
I just want to make a short comment. It is very interesting.
Please.
And I think we should discuss much more this issue between us, you know, and in Portugal should be much more discussed.
Yes, of course.
Because first, one idea is that if we keep on in the same path like this, not only we are destroying the territory, landscape, and so on, but we are also killing that goose that lays the golden eggs that tourism itself needs. So it's a stupid thing that we are doing. Second thing, I think the cities, Guta was talking about Porto and Lisbon, and some measures, some other cities took some measures like, you know, containing some type of tourism, non-residents that are buying houses and having lots of fiscal benefits and so on. We have to learn with the other cities. What do they have done already? Third thing, there is no. This is the main thing that we all agreed. There is no territorial. There is not strategy. We don't have a strategy. We don't have a planning for this. We don't have a public policy for tourism, and it's very important because it's crucial. It's transversal to the country, and it's so important for the economy. So we should have, and it should be much more discussed and stabilized. And the last thing is that, of course, we should reinforce the touristical industry, linking it with culture, with environment, with thermal waters, for instance, regarding the many places that we have in Portugal that are fantastic, linked with thermal waters, for instance, and using this for for health and so on. So we need to make a diverse approach to this issue that is so important for our economy and for our future. But we need a strategy, and when we don't have it. So we have for many other things, but not for this. A sustainable strategy. I think we should all should make some pressure for this in the next few times. We don't have much time, so we have to do it very quickly.
And to conclude, Luigi and Guta, can you make some comments on these final remarks and the final remark, okay? And thank you very much. Please, Luigi, and then Guta.
Yeah. If I may say, the problem that I'm hearing that you're saying about Portugal, they're not only about Portugal. Many countries have the same problem. I mean, what you describe in terms of the conflict between residents and tourists. I mean, you have seen someone of you mentioned the Barcelona tourists go home, or the Amsterdam, so on. The conflict, as I say, between a resident and a tourist, where the community just see that the negative impact are overcoming on the positive benefits. This obviously cannot work. But I would not say, I mean, Ministry of Tourism, most European countries have not a Minister of Tourism. When I was at UNWTO, we were telling them, how come Portugal, I'm hearing 14%, Italy, 12%, even Spain doesn't have a minister. As a minister that has tourist portfolio, but it's not called the Minister for Tourism. So I think these problems are similar to many other countries. Now, one of the issues that I think Paolo mentioned is how can you divert tourism? How can you avoid concentrating tourism only on Lisbon, on Porto, on Coimbra? And I think this is part of that. I mean, if you can remember during the pandemic, probably Portugal was the same. In Spain, the first tourist segment that developed was rural tourism, because people felt safe going in a small village and not in a big beach and so on. So, I mean, the strategy that many destinations or countries are using, and in fact, maybe attracting the tourists with the main destination, but then offering alternative. So you come to Lisbon, but then you're given the possibility of visiting the wineries, your possibility of walking the Santiago de Compostela Trail, your possibility to have some cultural events, as Guta was mentioning. So try to add to I mean, we should get away with the 2-3 days in a city and go back and fly back and forth. This is not the way we can be sustainable. You know, you have to try to balance, the resources we use in terms of emissions, in terms of the rest, with a longer tourist visit, for example. But this is, of course, this is part of a strategy. You need someone that make the strategy. You need someone that as a campaigning for tourists to come, that has the product in place, and that makes it happen. But this is just some reflection of what I heard from your comments.
Thank you very much, Luigi. It was perfect, and thank you again for being with us, okay? And now we will conclude with Guta. Okay, Guta, thank you.
Yes, so Luigi, I agree with you when it comes to a Minister of Tourism. I remember some years ago, I wrote an article saying that we don't need a Minister for Culture, because I was proposing that culture should be seated at the table of the Prime Minister and being very transversal to all the activities of the government. And I think that in a way, Spain is much more clever when it comes to see tourism as an industry, and they do see it on a transversal level. So I agree with you. We don't need one, but we need to have at least this as a priority for the Prime Minister, I would say, because it will help us a lot to have that. Then the other issue that Paulo was saying, it is a fact that we suffer, like many others suffer, with this question of tourism is basically developing the coast, forgetting the inland, although we are a very narrow country, and I always say that we are only a coastline and we don't have inland. But the fact that my true and sincere fear here is that I definitely don't want to see something similar to what happened in Algarve or what happened in Ericeira or what happened in all our coasts happening in the inland of Portugal. I don't want that. I would fight for that, no doubts about it. So the question is how to be able to create a model of a sustainable tourism in the areas of Portugal that are not being used by this industry. So that's the big question mark for me, and it's a challenge for us. And of course, I do believe in the impact of good examples. So each time that I find a good example in terms of hotel, in terms of a touristic offer, they are certainly very inspiring, and they produce a dynamic. I know that, and I'm for that. But again, and I subscribe what Luisa was saying, no doubts that we are facing a turning point moment here in Portugal. And my biggest fear is that we, by being very eager, very, following this idea of being modern and innovative and everything, we can easily destroy what we have of the most precious. So definitely bring the tourism to other locations, but definitely as well, do not replicate the mistakes that we did here and that we saw happening in Venice, Barcelona, and so on. So is this a call for action? Should be. Portugal is sometimes a strange country to mobilize, but I think that this could be a national issue as well for us all. So
yes. Good. Thank you very much, Luigi. Thank you very much. I think it was a superb discussion. We may have other opportunities in the future to do that. But I know, Luisa, you want to make a comment, final comment, please. No? Okay.
Estava só a dizer que concordo. Agora
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for you, and then we have a conversation in the future. Thank you. Have a nice week. Bye-bye. Fantastic. Bye-bye.
Thank you for the invitation. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, Luigi. Have a nice week, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.